Come read with me. This is Violet. I'm reading from my second book, It Takes Two. A little bit me and a little bit you. This chapter is packed up with no place to go. This is me reading again. Me speaking. Fonda, an older sister of mine, said she would come from Fresno and get me and my stuff and find me a place to live. Fonda and her husband drove to Redwood City with their large box van that they used in their business. They loaded up my furniture and we went back to Fresno. I paid them for their gas. When I told Joyce that I had to return to Fresno, she was very upset and could not understand why I wanted to leave. She still chose to believe in the innocence of her husband. There were not many apartments then, and most houses were more than I could afford. I had no desire to move back home with my family. I doubt they wanted that either. There were still 7 kids at home. I did not think I could live with the restrictions. I was tired of other people trying to run my life. I was tired of getting myself into situations, and I wanted a place of my own. When I got back to Fresno, everyone acted like I had deserted Joyce in her time of need. Finally, I had no choice but to tell them the truth about what had happened. The old adage, jumping from the frying pan into the fire, might have been coined for my life that year. It seemed that everyone had the perfect solution for my life, except their solutions caused me more problems. This was certainly the case when I returned to Fresno. I was still very young, barely 18, and until my marriage had rarely been out of sight of home. So to put it bluntly, I was ignorant and naive, yet I still wanted to trust those who were supposed to be helping me. My largest problem was that I had a limited income. I was living on about $200 a month, so I began searching for a place for less than $100 a month. That was not an easy task, even in 1968. I began to scour the classified ads in the paper for any likely possibilities. Then Fonda called me with what she thought was the perfect place. It was a studio apartment, she said, for only $80 a month. Since I did not get around much, I was not that familiar with different areas of town. When she offered to take me there, I acquiesced. It turned out to be in an old boarding house in the downtown district of Fresno near the train station. Even this did not deter me. As I said, I was very ignorant. I wasn't familiar with the downtown area of Fresno. I paid $200 cash to the landlord, 2 months' rent, and a deposit. Then I moved in. The kitchen had only a shelf for a table. I bought some contact paper and covered the shelf to brighten up the place. The apartment was old, dark, and infested with cockroaches. It had a Murphy bed in the wall and no place for any of my furniture. Fonda offered to store my things at her house. She had an empty annex on the end of her house. She said it would be no problem. No mention of money for storage was made. The apartment had a tiny little kitchen that needed a thorough cleaning, but with the help of some self-stick shelf paper, it would be cute. The Murphy bed folded up into the wall and when folded out, took up the entire living room. When the bed was down, there was not even room to get to the bathroom. The apartment was located on P Street, which was one of the oldest and least safe areas in town. G Street, which was the main hangout for prostitutes and drug dealers, was only a few blocks away. It was near the county jail and the courthouse. The first night I spent there, I took Eileen, who was 7 at the time, to stay with me. As the night wore on, it seemed there were a lot of old men in the building. And then I turned out the lights. I discovered there were hundreds of cockroaches in the building also. I think the majority of them were in my apartment. They had no fear and came from every nook and cranny. They crawled all over the floor so that I was afraid to put my feet over the side of the bed. I couldn't wait until morning so that I might get out of there. I slept with the light on for the first time in my life, hoping that would keep the roaches at bay. The next day, I went shopping for bug spray and shelf paper and came back. Then the next day, I left to buy groceries. I came back to find that someone had been in the apartment and had gone through my things. This was extremely frightening. The key was an old-fashioned skeleton type. Every apartment probably had the same key. It was no place for a single young woman to be living. It wasn't safe. I called Randall and told him what happened, and he was furious. Not at the cockroaches, the old men, or the intruder, but at Fonda for taking me there and allowing me to rent the place. He came right over and said I was moving out that night. He took me to see the landlord to try to get my money back since I had only been in the place for 2 days. The landlord refused to give my money back, and I was $200 wiser. Hard lesson number 4. It seemed that in half a year I had accumulated enough problems to last me a lifetime. Unfortunately, my difficulties had only just begun. Randall took me to stay with him and his wife. They had 2 toddlers at the time, Denise and Patrick, who were cute as buttons. They were living in a rented house on First Street. One thing I liked about living there is that it was right around the corner from the White Elephant thrift store. I used to walk there and shop. I was dependent on everyone else for transportation. For a while, everything moved along smoothly for me. It was comfortable living with Randall and his family. They treated me well, and I did my best not to be a burden to them. I probably didn't offer my help as I might have, but I didn't know better. I was young and dumb. Once Randall came to me and said, "Follow me." He took me into the bathroom and showed me my hair trimmings in the sink. He asked me to clean them up. I did. It taught me to be proactive about cleaning up after myself. Even now, when I trim my hair and see the trimmings in the sink, it makes me think of that time. I thought as long as I took care of myself and kept my things picked up, it was enough. I spent a lot of time playing with the kids. We lived close to most everything, and I could walk. I often shopped with Randall's wife. When they rented the house on First Street, the landlord had not told them that the city of Fresno had purchased all of the houses on their side of the street for future Highway 41. Fresno was growing, and the city council was working on widening several major streets. The city came through and removed many of the houses to make room for the new road. The house that Randall had been renting was one of the ones chosen to be removed. Shortly after they moved in, we found out we all had to move out. It was necessary, once again, to move to another location. They found a house on a small side street near Manchester Shopping Center on Blackstone Avenue and moved in. Manchester was a fairly new mall then, and it was only a couple of blocks away. It was close enough to walk and window shop. I did not know at the time that Randall and his wife were having marital problems. They kept their problems to themselves. Randall worked a lot. He liked to drink beer. When he was drinking, he wasn't very nice. Having me there only exacerbated the problem. Then his wife left him and took the children. I once again had to find myself a place to live. While staying with Randall, I had gotten a small Sheltie puppy. The kids loved her, and she was pretty attached to me, too. I had to go out of town for a few days and left her in the care of a nephew. He was probably not old enough for the responsibility, because when I returned, the puppy was missing. No one knew where he had gone. Easy come, easy go.